Hello, we're here to talk a little bit about producing plays that require trigger warnings. My name's Paul. I'm the artistic director of Rabbit in a Hat Productions and the director of a play called JONNO, which is going on at the Next Stage Festival right now. It's a play about a famous radio personality in Canada who assaults women. It's mostly about the women, really, I think. But I first heard about it at the Winnipeg Fringe in 2016. I was doing another show there and heard all this buzz about this very controversial but cool play. So I went to see it, and it was very good. But yeah, I don't remember if there were trigger warnings, but I remember when the violent bit started, I felt pretty uncomfortable and kind of scared, but also fascinated. It was conflicting, and I kind of forgot I wasn't alone in the theater until a woman in front of me stood up and sort of shuddered and quickly shuffled out of the theater. And I felt sort of envious of her. As a theatrical practitioner, I felt obligated professionally to sit through it. But ultimately, I'm glad I did, because in the end, I got this in the play. There's a sense of justice, and the play itself is, in a way, a kind of alternative form of justice. And then I felt kind of bad for this woman who only got the really disturbing part. So when it came to putting it on here in Toronto, it was wonderful to have a few other people to help us figure out how our audience can get more of what I got out of it. So I'll let Mirka, our producer, tell you a little bit about that.
Thanks, Paul. So my name's Mirka Loiselle, and I was the producer for JONNO. So I'd like to talk a bit about what the choices that Paul and I made, and the staff at Next Stage, to take care of our audiences when they were seeing the show. In general, this idea of the power dynamic between artist and audience is a topic that interests me a lot, both as a producer but also as a theater goer. I think that there's an inherent hierarchy that exists between the two as soon as you walk into a room, and the artist is automatically put in a kind of position of power. And of course, the power that we give artists is a great thing, because it's what enables them to speak their truth, to challenge their audience, to push boundaries, to force them to see things in new light. But the problem with the hierarchy is that it strips the audience of their own autonomy. As soon as you enter the theater, you are, for the most part, expected to sit and watch quietly. If you become overwhelmingly uncomfortable, there's not really any easy avenues for escape. So this is something we wanted to tackle and confront when we were putting on JONNO. So obviously the most immediate way to do that was through trigger warnings, by warning the audience before they even bought their ticket what they were expected to see. I think for all of us, including trigger warnings was a no-brainer, and so I'm not really going to talk about or debate their merits, but if you have thoughts on the subject, you're obviously more than welcome to approach us in the breakout sessions. What I wanted to talk about was the other structure that we put into place to ensure the safety of the audience. So given Paul's experience in Winnipeg, when he witnessed people walking out of the theater, we decided to just make that an explicit choice for the audience. Before each performance, I go up on stage and I tell the audience that they're welcome to exit the theater at any point. And more importantly, they're also welcome to come back, which is not something that we do for most Next Stage shows. But we felt that that was important because, given what Paul said, we want to give people the option to take a break if they need to, but also to come back and experience the rest of the show. No one's actually taken advantage of this so far in the two productions that we've done, and I don't know if anyone's going to, but it feels really important to me that we gave the audience a choice, because just like trigger warnings, it's a way to reinstate to the audience members' personal autonomy. Finally, for us, there was also the question of how to take care of the audience after the show. And for us, that just meant giving a space to both process their experience and to continue conversation. Lots of people do talkbacks during shows. My personal favorite model of talkback is kind of the long table discussion, because it's another way that erases this hierarchy between audience and artists. So instead of having this Q&A session, you just open it up for a very open discussion where everyone's sort of on the same playing field. But again, because we wanted to incorporate this element of choice, we didn't want to force anyone to engage in conversation. So we actually chose to host these two we're calling them wind down sessions after a couple performances, where audience members can join us, so can members of our team, and they're more than welcome to engage in discussions and questions, but they can also just sit quietly and reflect on their experience. And for those of you wondering, we're going to host these sessions at Jimmy's Coffee at 8 p.m. on January 10th and 8:30 p.m. on January 11th. So if you see the shows on those dates, or if you've seen the shows and want to talk to us about it, that's when you can come join us. In the end, for me, it all boils down to this idea of choice. And I think that we need to give audience members more of a choice, and I think we can do that without doing any disservice to our artistic work and our artistic process. I worked as a camp counselor for many years, and one of our mottos as counselors was this idea of challenge by choice. Summer camp is a place for growth and personal challenge, but it's unreasonable to expect everyone to want to be challenged in the same way and at the same time. And I think theater should be the same. For a play like JONNO, that was about consent and personal autonomy that was doubly important, but I believe it's a motto we can all afford to bear in mind. And now I'm going to pass it on to Erica, who is one of the performers in JONNO.
Hi, I'm Erica. I play Marcy in JONNO. When I was approached with this play, I had a lot of questions, and I still have a lot of questions when it comes to staging this subject matter. One thing I was sure of, though, that if I was to participate, I would need there to be trigger warnings for the audience, and simply because, like many people, I need trigger warnings. To speak personally, in the past, in my worst experiences when I've seen a play that I couldn't have expected with their publicity involved depictions of sexual assault, I've had anxiety attacks in the theater. This experience as an audience member is really embarrassing, and it's not one that I would want other people to go through because I'm no longer watching the show. I'm in my own experience. So that being said, when I'm given a trigger warning for the show, what it's really giving me, as Mirka has mentioned, is an opportunity. I bring a close friend. I sit in a seat that I can easily exit if I need to, and I make sure I'm calm and prepared for the show. So doing this empowers me as an audience member so I can remain included in the conversation. And given that JONNO is all about this conversation, it was especially important to me that that was there. The next aspect I'd like to quickly speak about is staging the show. Staging the violence itself within the show. My questions were and are, when presenting a piece aimed at ending sexual violence, does portraying that violence help or hinder that message? Does it normalize it? In this particular instance, I will disclose that the violence I'm discussing is oral sex that Marcy performs in an attempt to gain her freedom. I knew if I were to present this and stage this realistically in view of the audience, Marcy's face would need to be covered, and ultimately, the audience would be left seeing JONNO's satisfaction. I felt this would erase Marcy. I felt this would erase her experience. I also felt this would present the conflicting message that the abuser's satisfaction was more interesting and more important, thus doing a huge disservice to the message of the play. So I said I wanted to present the moment stylistically. This is greatly helped by the fact that Alix's play doesn't exist in a world of realism. You'll notice if you see the show that there's a man in a donkey suit on stage. So we made the choice to have Marcy face the audience. For me, this furthers the message and goal of the play. It remains a triggering moment. It remains a triggering play, but we are focused in on Marcy's experience. The audience is not left with just JONNO's satisfaction of the act, but is forced to confront Marcy's embarrassment and pain that he is putting her through. And we have to look in the literal face of what this violence is and does to a person, but at the same time, we are offered her bravery and strength. For me, within the violence of the show, I hoped in a small way it would be a moment of solidarity for those who may struggle with watching the scene in the same way that I would, and to show that the goal of the piece is to not to shock and trigger, but to continue the conversation. Thanks.